Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Business Growth and Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Bill, the company's expert. I'll be your host today. And today we're going to cover a pretty fundamental topic, actually, in the world of startups. That is, what startup success looks like. Now, on the surface, this might sound like a pretty obvious topic. After all, if you're making money hand over fist, surely that's success. Well, I don't mean it like that. Instead, I mean it in the way that most startup founders struggle with on a daily basis. And most people who start small businesses, they struggle with this on a daily basis. And that is, the way things are going, is that correct? Am I on a trajectory to success? Or is this a trajectory towards failure? I can't tell. What would success look like at this stage? And that's how I mean this topic. Now, as I've mentioned several times on this channel before, I've mentored lots and lots of startup founders, and I've been a startup founder myself. I've been a CEO myself, and I've worked as a consultant to a lot of smaller businesses. Not just small businesses, but I've worked with small business being anything under 100 employees. So a big problem that a lot of people have, a big question mark is, what should I be doing at this stage? And if I'm not getting certain results, or I am getting certain results, is that good? Is that bad? I can't tell. Should I be doing more? Should I keep going with what I'm doing? I don't know. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, in this episode, I'm going to cover 4 answers to that question, 4 things that, in my opinion, and based on my experience, should be there. And if they're all there, then you are on the path to success. It's what you are seeing is actually success. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. Now, let's get on with this here. The first point, my first answer, one thing that you absolutely need, and this is pretty much at every stage of the adventure, from the moment you decide to start a company, and the moment you launch it, I should say, all the way up until the point where you're revenue positive, and beyond that, you're profitable. The thing that you have to have is constant news. That means there should be a steady stream of newsworthy things that you have to report. So if somebody asks you, I understand you've started the business 3 months ago. How's it going? What's going on? You should be able to rattle off a list of things that have happened recently, steps forward, milestones you've reached, customers you've made contact with, developments that have occurred. You should be able to rattle those off, because if you can't, if nothing really is going on, that's a signal that your business is on the way to failure. Put it this way, that's the way that's going to be interpreted by the vast majority of investors out there. You need a constant flow of news. So if you have something the equivalent of a newsletter, either you're doing blog posts or you're doing posts on social media, a sign of health of any business that is starting, that is pre-revenue, you should still have a steady stream of news. Now, examples of this could be things like breakthroughs you've made in product development, okay? We are working on alpha versions of whatever the thing is that we're going to sell. You should have, this is more in the case of a startup where you're developing a product. You should have news in that department, progress you've made, successful tests. The product development line should have a stream of news, trials you've done, things like this. And then what should be going in some capacity as you're doing it is the marketing thread. What customers have you made contact with? What parties have you spoken to? What conventions have you been to? What associations have you registered with? And so on and so forth. There should be a constant stream of developments that are newsworthy. Okay, now, other people can include other things in this, things that I don't really consider super important, like people that you've hired or grants or loans that you've received on the finance side. that's okay. It's not really the most desirable developments I would be looking for, if I was to invest or to participate in a startup. But as long as you have something to report, and this needs to be going at a steady clip. The moment that nothing really is going on and you have nothing to report and nothing is newsworthy, that's the moment you should be afraid. Okay, so that's one essential requirement to be on the road to success. It's a constant stream of news. That's what I would say. So that's number one. Number two, the question is what startup success looks like. Well, I would say part two of this is that all levels of the marketing funnel should have good multiples. Okay, and what I mean by this is hopefully you have heard of something called the marketing funnel, right? Now, this is an important concept in marketing. It's not a fundamental concept in marketing, but it is a concept in marketing. And for whatever reason, in the last 5 years or so, this has gotten a lot of press. I'm not sure what really triggered that, but this is a thing. Anyway, if you've never heard of it before, the marketing funnel, you can easily Google this, by the way, and I recommend that you do if this is new. The marketing funnel is a concept where at the top of the funnel, you have all the potential customers that have had some kind of exposure to your product. So either they have heard of it, or they've seen some kind of advertisement for it, or received some kind of word of mouth or promotion of any kind, right? They've seen a YouTube video on it, or they've heard the name. So they've had some kind of exposure to your offering, your product or service, okay? And then different people do it different ways, but it funnels down into, like, let's say 1,000 people have seen let's say an advertisement for your product, okay? And then the next level down would be all the people that have, they've attended a session or something like that. If you hear about it and you're interested, the next logical thing is for them to attend a session, okay? Maybe they pay $5 to get into the session, they learn more. Okay, so from 1,000 people that have heard of it down to 100 people that have attended a session. And then finally at the bottom, you would have, say, 10 people that have bought your product. Okay, so at the top of the funnel, it's, the most superficial exposure. And then at the bottom of the funnel, it funnels all the way down to at the bottom, you get paying customers, or some people go even further than that. And they say, customers that not only have bought your products, but they love them and they've gone out and they've evangelized about them and tried to get other people to buy them too. Okay. So what you want is you want to get people down at the bottom of the funnel. Okay. Customers and people that are absolutely in love with your company and your products. Okay. So the way to do that is to have a lot of people at the top of the funnel. So a lot of exposures going on at the top, and then a lot of interest shown as they go down the funnel. And then that does conversions into a paying customer. Okay. So you could describe this as like the sales process. Okay. Depending on what department you work for, some people look at it as sales, some people look at it as marketing, but basically that's what a marketing funnel is. And in order to make sales at the bottom of the funnel, okay, a couple of things have to happen. You have to have good multiples, for example, if 1,000 people heard about your product, how many people requested more information and showed some kind of interest? Well, if you don't have a very compelling product, maybe 1 out of 1,000 people might want more information. So that's like a multiple of basically 0.1%. But if you have a really amazing product that anyone who hears about it is immediately hooked and they want more information and they demonstrate interest, maybe the multiple is something like 10%. For every 1,000 people that hear about it, 100 people demonstrate some kind of interest and some kind of commitment. Okay, so that's a good multiple. So not only is your top of your funnel wide, but the I don't know how you describe this, the steepness of how it bottlenecks down at the bottom, it's very gentle. Okay. So if you want to end up with a lot of customers at the bottom, you have to start with a very wide funnel on the top and you have to have good multiples on the way down. Okay, so people that have a background in sales and marketing, you guys know all about this. However, technical people, people from the operations department, people from the finance department, you guys may not be aware of this or place as much importance on it. And I've worked with a lot of founders that are the more technical types of startup founders, where to them, sales and marketing is almost an afterthought. And they put all their focus on operations, on developing a product or a service. And the assumption always in the back of their mind is that once I have developed this thing, if I build it, they will come. And customers will just magically appear. And unfortunately, that's not the reality. So the marketing funnel is very, very important. And if you want to have customers at the end and start making money, which after all is the entire point of business, you have to have your marketing funnel in order. Okay, so number 2, okay, answer to the question, what startup success looks like is as you're going down this development process, you should be focusing on your marketing funnel. You should be getting awareness out there. You should be receiving interest from potential customers, and you should have a nice wide funnel at the top, and then a good ratio of a multiple of customers who are aware to customers who are interested. Okay, and you can do that. You can even find artificial ways sometimes before you launch a product of going down that funnel even further to things like customers who are, they are interested in trying out a prototype or, something like this. There's all kinds of things you can do where if your product has not been released yet, there's still some ways of getting customer involvement. Maybe they do trials. Maybe they come down and give their feedback. You could put together things like, a focus group and this kind of thing where, you give people sort of advanced prototypes and you give them demos and you get their feedback. This serves several purposes. It can generate interest, it can create awareness, and you can get valuable feedback from your potential customers, the market you're looking for, people that are very interested, and they can give you invaluable feedback on what they think of the product right in the development stage so that you can incorporate this into your product. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do there. Very important to have this stuff together. Don't simply develop a project, focus purely on that as if it's an academic research project, all the while simply assuming that customers will show up. And I've worked with startups that they feel they can sidestep this by saying, either directly or in a business plan, they say, well, our plan is to be acquired. So we don't really care about customers because to us, our customers are larger companies that would acquire us, that would buy us outright. And I say, well, how are you going to get them interested if you can't get customers interested? That's a problem that everybody has. Everybody assumes this thing will be invaluable, but unfortunately, a lot of times that can be very self-centered. If it's so valuable, a lot of times companies will try and develop it in-house, and they don't want necessarily to look outside their own enormous company with a lot of resources and employees they trust. They don't want to look outside to some tin pot, no offense, tin pot little startup company who has something that they don't. Okay, that does happen, but it is very rare that happens. So keep that in mind. Okay, moving on to answer number 3, the third thing that you need when the question is what startup success looks like. The third thing that you have to have is, and this is for complex products, you can't be in the world of pre-launch for more than a year. Okay, if you have a product that's so complicated that after 1 year full time of working on it, you can't release it, then that's unfortunately maybe too big of a step, and B, something that shouldn't really be done in a startup. It's something that requires so much resources that it would require a larger company to be able to do. For example, big problems are solved by big companies. Now, if you want to design the next airliner that's going to replace things like the Boeing 747 and the Airbus A380, that's not something a startup company can do in their garage. Okay, that's a big problem, very complex, requires to be solved by big companies. Startups, on the other hand, are small. They are designed to solve small problems, something that can be done in a garage. Now, oh sure, they can get big later, but in the startup stage, they work on small problems, and they can really shine when they're working on a problem that, although it's doable by a person in a garage, it's something that's just not on the radar for a lot of established larger companies. They're just not thinking of that yet. Okay, and that's where you could really find a sweet spot. Now, if you bite off more than you can chew, something outside your capabilities, and something that requires maybe multiple years for you to develop and test and go from, beta to prototype to, MVP, and you get your product launching in more than 1 year, that maybe is not the best type of challenge to take on. And if it's taking that long, you might need to readjust your plans, because the further you go in that pre-revenue development stage, before you actually can bring a product or service to market, the more chances you're going to run out of money. It just might be too much of a problem. And complexity kills any kind of plan. No matter how big you are, no matter how big your organization is, complexity is the enemy. Okay, it's better to do something that is doable than try and reach for the stars and then find that, as with most things, it takes more time than you think. It's more complex than you think. And it requires more money than you think. Okay, so if you've been in the launch stage, you've been trying to get to a product, and this has gone on for more than a year, that's a red flag. That is not what success looks like, generally speaking. Okay, you need to be able to work on it full time and have it done in less than a year. At least have something done, something you can sell in less than a year. Okay, that's answer number 3. So just to recap so far, what success looks like. Number 1, you need to have a constant stream of news. Number 2, you need to have all levels of your marketing funnel together. You have to have a nice wide funnel, the ability to reach a lot of customers. You got to be talking to customers, getting feedback, having your finger on the pulse of the industry, having good multiples. Number 3, for complex products, you can't be in that development stage for more than a year to have something that you can sell. And finally, that brings us to number 4. And number 4, what success looks like is that you don't have any costly distractions. Now, examples, in my opinion, things I've seen of costly distractions are things like dealing with co-working space, dealing with office space, dealing with having to put up a website, having to deal with lawyers for legal issues, having to deal with accountants. You need someone to do your books, having to deal with patents and other IP related stuff. Now, I'm not saying those aren't important. Some of those are actually pretty critical later on, but when you're in a pre-revenue stage, you haven't made a single dollar of profit or of revenue yet. None of that stuff matters. It is only a distraction. What I have seen, ladies and gentlemen, is I have seen startup founders that have been on a 2-year journey of starting a business, and 80% of their energy has gone into these very things, obsessing over websites, business cards, lawyers, accountants, obsessing over patents, all for something that doesn't exist yet. And I know what you're going to say, all you devil's advocates out there. You're going to say, well, when it does become a reality, won't it be a problem if I release it and there's no patent? And I say, if you release it and you then make a lot of money, then getting the patent will be no problem. It'll be easy. Getting the office space will be easy. Getting the accountant will be a matter of course. Getting a lawyer will be a matter of course. It's a good problem to have because you will have money coming in the door at that point. You will not be having to pay for those things with debt financing or from angel investors, by the way, and not having an angel investor breathe down your neck because you spend most of the money on getting office space, business cards, a website, a lawyer, an accountant, while at the same time producing nothing will be a lot more promising. Okay, so that, ladies and gentlemen, that would be my answer to what startup success looks like based on my experience in business for nearly 30 years and having worked with many, many startup founders, having seen things go really, really right and really, really wrong in a lot of interesting and exciting ways. That's what I have learned. If you have those four things together, no costly distractions, no extensive product development, your marketing funnel together, and a constant stream of news and developments, you are on track. And I see great things in your future. So thank you very much for your attention. You guys are all awesome. I do have a course called the $100 MBA if you want to learn business, which is the best way to be successful at business. Check it out. There's a link in the description box of this video that you can follow. And I thank you so much for your attention. You guys are all awesome, and I wish you nothing but the best. Take care.